think probably in my boxing career, and then I'll go to personal life after. My boxing career, I think failing to make the Tokyo Olympics, so the 2021 or 2020 at the time Olympics, I failed just before COVID hit, and I failed on two occasions, right? And I was pretty highly ranked internationally. I sort of went to the qualifiers thinking that I was going to qualify, and I failed twice. And I think and then I come home into COVID. I was based in Melbourne. We were in a pretty heavy lockdown, as most people were in Australia and worldwide. I think that was probably the hardest time because there was talks that we weren't gonna, the Olympics weren't even gonna be on because of COVID. I was locked down in my house. I was thinking at the time it was about 15 years I dedicated to boxing and it was all over, right? And I'm thinking like, I've just dedicated 15 years of my life and my Olympic dream's over. Like I was heartbroken. I just thought then all the thoughts of, am I good enough? Do I deserve this? Obviously the universe doesn't want me to go, right? And then you start really beating yourself up. And that probably 6 months was really challenging. And it took me ages to get out of this. Like I'm so self-aware and I understand myself so well and I know what the good habits to do, but even in that time, I found it really hard to do those habits, do those positive things to take care of myself. And it took me 6 months to get out of that rut. So, but eventually I did. Eventually I got up and I got moving and I'm really grateful for that. And I had a lot of good people around me at that time. Probably personally, I think my brother's drug addiction probably rocked me the hardest. I've been through other things that probably would seem harder with my personal life, but I think my brother's drug addiction, he's battled mental health issues and drug addiction for most of his life, and I think I see a lot of myself in my brother. And I think every time I saw him and I'd try and take care of him or I hated him or I just was so frustrated with him, I think I just kept seeing myself in him. I'd look into his eyes and I'd see myself and what I could be if I didn't do all the right things, right? So I think they're the two areas where it's like I was really, really low, but it's always in those moments as well that you learn a lot and you grow a lot.
Another, I feel like another big question there is, what are some physical but also mental like preparations that you've had to do for challenging situations? So like, what's some advice you've got?
It's probably it's what I said before around like honoring my word, and so if I say I'm going to do something, just trying my best to actually doing it and living up to what I say to myself. And I think it's like we can never lie to ourselves. We can lie to the world, we can lie to our community, we can lie to a number of people, but I think it's like when I look in the mirror and if I have not upheld the word with myself or I have turned my back on the little promises I've made with myself, when I look in the mirror, it's like I know that I've not upheld it. I know that I've lied to myself. And I think it's just that little thing, just like if you say you're going to do something, try your hardest. And I think in that comes a whole level of like acceptance. It's like owning and accepting. It's like full ownership of what you say you're going to do. So I think that's always been a really big thing for me, and that comes in many different forms. Obviously I am a professional athlete, so training really hard and being structured with my regimen and my training schedule, but even in the times that life isn't about sport, like around, you know, whether it be family or relationships that have been a little bit more pear-shaped at times. And I think it's when I say I'm going to have a conversation with my dad because we feel like we needed to, it's actually doing it. Say you're going to do it and actually do it. And I think it's always sort of served me really well.
I would really like to like go off of that and ask you now, what are some coping mechanisms and strategies for these setbacks, either personal or career-based?
I think when I was growing up, I think the world always tells you, and at times it probably is a good tactic, but people always say, get up, dust yourself off and go again, right? And I think I did that for most of my life. Like I would fail in sport or there'd be a breakup or a friendship would fizzle out and you sort of just get up, dust yourself off and you probably run the same mistake again, right? Because you haven't really reflected on why you failed or why it didn't work out or what happened. So I think something that I try and do now, and it's actually the reason why I've chose not to box for the rest of this year. I failed at the Paris Olympics. I didn't do what I thought I was going to do. It wasn't the campaign I wanted. But I think I've said to myself for the next 6 months, before the end of the new year, is actually just sitting in the mud and reflecting on what went wrong in that campaign and why it didn't work. Like what can I do better? Like something didn't go right. something didn't go right, and I need to own that, and I need to look at that, I need to reflect on that for when I get back up, and now hopefully before the new year, get back up and then actually shoot again at whatever I'm shooting at, and once I've taken the lessons. And I think sometimes we get up too quick and we don't actually reflect on why we're down. But I like to sit in the mud and actually just accept it and own it, and then reflect on why I'm there so I can get up and get moving when I've learnt the lessons I need to learn.
What are some moments where you felt like you wanted to quit, but what's kept you going? Like, what's pushed you? What's motivated you to just keep going?
Oh, there's been a number of moments where I think not so much I wanted to quit, but I just thought maybe I wasn't worthy. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Maybe I didn't deserve it, whether it be the Olympic glory or whether it be even making an Olympic team. And even when I was younger, like before the Olympics were even on the card, like even winning the state title was like a massive achievement for me. It was huge. Like it was just all I wanted, and I failed a number of times of winning the state title and then winning the national title. Like each time I got higher, there was a whole lot of failures like that were before my level up. So I think yeah, it's just always been really hard. I think just continuously showing up. It's like if I really want something, it's just continuously showing up. And I've had a conversation with a number of people about this topic, and I don't know. I believe we have a light wolf on our shoulder and a dark wolf on our shoulder, and I think I don't know if we can ever get rid of it. The dark wolf is the one that's trashing us and saying we're not good enough and we're not worthy enough, and then the light wolf is the one that thinks we can take over the world and conquer the world and do our wildest dreams, right? And I just don't know if we can ever lose both. But the one that is the loudest is the one that we feed the most. And I've always just tried my best to feed the light wolf more often, but sometimes that dark wolf is just still there and it's still kicking. But as I said, just trying to feed that light wolf a little bit more.
You know what, man? You have been through and endured so many challenging situations. And I want to know, what are your physical and mental preparations for taking on these challenging situations?
I think it's just getting in there, not overcomplicating it, just actually just diving in the deep end and learning how to swim. That's how I've always done it. I understand people are different. Some people, my partner, she's super analytical and she'll be very prepared. I'm the opposite. Like if I prepare too much, then it becomes very much like I'm stiff. Yeah. I'm stiff as, where she needs that. She really needs to be structured. So I understand people are different, but for me, just diving in the deep end and see how we go. And usually, it's like I'll either learn how to swim because it is that survival thing, right? Like you're in it, you're like, I've got to learn how to do this really quick, or you crumble. But it's like very rarely do you actually crumble, I believe. Sometimes you do, of course. But yeah, I think just getting in there and actually biting the bullet and just get in there and learn on the fly.
You're right. You get so much further, and I think you have even a better experience just throwing yourself in.
Just throwing yourself, I think I don't know. I think the thing is, what will work for you won't work for me, and vice versa. That's the best thing. I love being human because we are all so different. But I don't know. For me, what always works is dive in the deep end, and it's like, oh, I'll either learn how to swim or I'm drowning.